Hey, deserving listeners, this is part 4 in which I watched Trisha and Ethan on Frenemies with Dr. Drew. At first, I didn't want to get involved in this, but then I thought, you know what, I could comment on Dr. Drew's technique, and so I thought I would do that since that is my field. I train therapists. I've been a therapist for 24 years. I've been a professor and a trainer of therapists for 23 years, and I usually have a lot of things to say, so let's get to it. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. This is the Psychology in Seattle podcast. Let's get to the YouTube video.
And you brought up stuff about me in private, so I thought it was okay to do it. So the minute you say, wow, I can't believe you would do that, I was like, what are you talking about? You just talked about all my personal
there's
shit.
things you've told me in private that I would never bring out, that you've told me about certain things about your relationship with people.
The thing you brought up about Moses was really, really personal. It's really damaging to this day in our relationship. It was not public.
Yes, it was.
Moses,
Everybody.
They're bickering, and all I can see is that she is hurt that he called her a name, and he is hurt that she brought something up in confidence. That's all that's happening. I think that's very clear to me. But because neither one of them is expressing their pain and only expressing attack, then the other person just attacks back. And so that's all that they're doing. And if I was watching this, I would see that, and I would try to get to that place of like, so Ethan, did that hurt you? Or how did you feel when she said that? Okay, Trisha, when he said you were crazy, how did that feel to you? What's going on there? You know, I'd really try to slow him down to that place. So let's see if Dr. Drew does that.
I agree, but that is something that is so fucking personal that you said, and we're like, please edit it out. It was a fucking weak moment, and our relationship will never get past that, and I even tell him that. Now everyone thinks I'm a fucking, like a man beater and shit like that because of you. It's fine. It's fine, but don't say I'm weaponizing. It is.
So you see her pain. She's starting to tear up. That's a obvious indication that she's really hurt. As a therapist, you want to key in on that. Earlier, Dr. Drew keyed in on touching of the hair and the sigh. Right now, she's about to cry, or she is crying. You want to key in. That's a wonderful inroad to getting to her to express her pain, which is at the base of all this, I'm pretty sure. One, because she deserves to express that pain. When we're in pain, we deserve to have that out there and have people know and take care of us. Two, she deserves to have the therapist say, I see you're in pain. It makes sense that you're in pain. And she deserves to have Ethan say, oh, you're in pain. I didn't know that. I'm really sorry. And then they can facilitate. So let's see what Dr. Drew does here.
Ethan, you are the one who said it. And you're like, everything. But you're the okay. He said while he was here, everything can be said. And I'm like, yeah, because I thought that was our relationship. So the minute I say something about your pill thing.
Wait, hold on. Before I said it, I said, I was like, how much of this can I read?
I didn't know
I don't
that
want to
was in
upset you. And she said to me,
hey guys,
you can read everything.
Hey, let's navigate these waters carefully, or Trisha's going to have another episode of Walking Out.
It is a good idea sometimes for the clinician to overpower, to get control of the session. You want to use it sparingly, of course, but Dr. Drew wants to focus on something, and he is having a hard time getting in there, and he has to raise his voice to get them to stop because he has something that he wants to do. So, makes sense. There's pros and cons to that, of course. I guess the con is that you can alienate your clients. The pro is that you can actually intervene right away. So let's see what he does here.
Like, frustrated.
So
it's
let's
just frustrating.
navigate carefully, right? Take a breath. So we don't want to get to the point where we have another episode of Walking Out.
I know I am fine for real. It's frustrating when he's like.
So getting people to calm down is a sometimes good intervention. You don't always need to do that as a therapist, but it can help. If people are escalated, it's hard for them to really hear each other. It's hard for them to feel okay about the session. And so it isn't unusual to say, okay, let's take a deep breath. Let's take a second here. And Dr. Drew is doing that. Let's see what he does once he gets them to a more differentiated place.
No, it's already out there. When Moses and I both know it wasn't. I didn't know that's what he was going to say. We have the ability to edit things out, and he didn't. Just like the pill thing, you could edit it out.
I get it, but you guys but this is a problem. This is the problem of a show like this, where you're playing with being totally out there with everything, when there are a few things that maybe not.
So, okay, I don't agree with this point. Essentially, Dr. Drew is saying, well, this is your fault for having a show like this. That doesn't make any sense. You can certainly have a show that's based on the premise that you bicker occasionally or that you're very open, but there's a line there that you don't cross. We can all understand that, right? So fine, but let's see what Dr. Drew says after this.
You guys got to be very clear with, can you both agree that at least attempt going forward that when there are things that should not go out, you'll both agree these things.
So this is actually a very amateur move. Now, maybe this is a good idea. We would have to ask Ethan and Trisha if they liked what was happening here, and sometimes they will. And I've observed this before when I'm working with my trainees. Sometimes I'll be like, whoa, what did you just do? And then the client will say, thank you for doing that one thing. And I'm like, really? Because I thought that was terrible. Sometimes I don't know what helps. It's just hard to know, especially in the beginning of treatment. So I just want to say tentatively, but this is a pretty amateur move that I try to eliminate from the novice therapist that I work with, which is essentially jumping to assigning homework. So the two of them are bickering. I see a lot of pain, and I see a lot of opportunity for getting to know their pain, being able to express it, taking care of each other, apologizing. And then from there, you don't have to assign any homework because they understand each other better, and they'll just know, if you rinse and repeat that in therapy week to week, to not hurt each other's feelings in between sessions. What he's doing is he's jumping way ahead, and he's saying, okay, so in the future, the two of you need to agree on what can be said online and what can't be said online. It's a super obvious idea. They probably knew that before getting into these fights. Knowing that idea is not the problem. The problem is that they're easily triggered and they accidentally hurt each other, which causes them to do things to each other that they wouldn't do normally. So one of the things another example of this that is almost universal is novice couples therapists will resort to assigning date night. Okay, we've all heard of date night, right? You're in a relationship, you have date night. You're sort of in this is usually long-term relationship issue, 5-10 years into a relationship. And you take each other for granted, you have kids, you have work, and you don't have a lot of intimacy, you don't have a lot of time to bond like you did perhaps in the beginning of the relationship. And so you have to have date night. And so a couple comes in and they're fighting and there's conflict and they say, we haven't been close in years. And the therapist inevitably will say, have you thought about date night? And I always talk with I always have to say it's the same thing to the novice clinicians of like, okay, I get why you want them to do date night, but let's analyze that for a second. Do you think they don't know about date night? And do you think that's really going to solve their issues? What if they go on a date and they talk the way they did in session? It's going to be a disaster. You have to work on the foundation of the relationship. And they'll have date nights naturally. You won't have to tell them. If you help them fix the relationship, they'll do date nights when they need to do it. They'll figure it out amongst you. You don't have to assign it to them. So it's usually a counter-transference move of like, whoa, they're fighting so much. I don't know what's happening. Maybe if I just tell them what to do for into the future, then everything will be fine, and I, as a clinician, will be less anxious. Working, as I said earlier, to work with relationships can be some of those counter-transferential situations in therapy because they're fighting right in front of you. It's one thing when an individual comes in and says, I fight with my friend all the time, we fight all the time, and you're just talking with that one person. And you do everything you can. The fighting is happening in your office. One, it's hard to stay differentiated when you're watching people in a fight. It's very tempting to get, and your heart rate goes up. It's a known fact. And so there's that. Plus, you feel responsible. You feel like, oh no, they're fighting. I've already tried to help them. I'm failing. They're fighting. I'm failing. They're fighting. How do I get them to stop fighting? Maybe if I just yell at them and give them homework, then they won't fight anymore, and I will feel okay as a clinician and I can relax. So I do a lot of work with novice clinicians about helping them to recognize that countertransference and not buy into it. It's universal that it happens, but to categorize it as unhelpful and to categorize the impulse of assigning date night or assigning future behaviors without addressing the underlying system is, wrong-headed. But anyway, let's see if Dr. Drew has something else. Maybe this will work, as I said. I can never know. Maybe his advice right here is perfect, and we'll just have to see. It's not a high likelihood of working though, but it might work.
I'm the person that's the villain. I'm the, oh my God, you went too far. You weaponized. This is why I'm scared for Moses to be in a relationship with you. It's like, that's our banter. That was my banter with my last relationship. That's ours. And I thought it was fine. And then, so my trigger wasn't that, oh, and I fucked up. Like the pill thing, yeah, probably I shouldn't have.
Let's find out what's going on with Ethan. Because if it really was as big a deal as we're making it, was it that big a deal?
So great. So he's slowing it down and being very pointed to Ethan in terms of how did it make you feel? Now he phrased it in an interesting way. Was it that big of a deal? That's the way he's asking the question. But that's an opening to get at Ethan's pain so that he can express that, so that she can understand that, maybe for the first time, and take care of Ethan in that way, and vice versa. That she can say it hurt and he can take care of her. That's usually what I am trying to get at. It usually is very hard with some people, but that's usually my mission. Let's see what happens here.
Well, clearly I didn't perceive it.
For you.
Oh, that he had like a bruise on his arm?
No, that she came out with the pill stuff.
No, it was more. I was more like shocked and surprised that she went there.
Okay. So
this is very common. He seemed to me like he was hurt. Ethan seemed like he was hurt by the pill thing being put out there, as he's putting it. And this is almost universal, that the first time you ask someone how they felt about something, even though they're hurt deep down, they will say, no, I wasn't hurt by it. It was not a big deal. I was just shocked and surprised, he says. I was shocked. I don't know, it was just more annoying to me, though, because there's layers to vulnerability. To say you're shocked and surprised is less vulnerable than saying, actually, yeah, it hurt my feelings, because I think we're friends. And when she said that, it really hurt my feelings. Or I thought we had an agreement that some things were off limits in terms of what you would say on the internet, and it hurt my feelings. And it's a kind of a sore subject for me. I mean, I guess I'm okay with it being out there, but I don't know if I was ready for it to be out there. I'm okay with it now, but at the time I was like, whoa, did she just say that? So, I don't know if that's what's going on for Ethan, but I'm guessing something like that is down there. So let's see what Dr. Drew does here. Now, maybe he'll accept that. Maybe like, okay, fine. What you're saying is you're surprised and shocked. And maybe he'll just go with that. Sometimes you just do. It's like, I'm pretty sure hurt is underneath there, but okay, I'm not going to press it. I'll just go with that. Or let's see if Dr. Drew helps to get down to that pain that he's feeling for both of them. For both of them to get acknowledgement for their pain, to be able to express their pain, help the other person understand that's what's happening, and give each other the opportunity to have compassion for each other and show that compassion.
Why did you then hit her with, hey, you're attacking me, you're weaponizing this information?
Because
that's what triggered her.
Because
Okay, so what? Okay, so fine. So what is that? Wait. So what is that? Trisha, what's he talking about?
I guess he says that I've done exposed videos about my boyfriends in the past where it's like when I'm hurt.
All right, so they're off base. There was an opportunity there. It's like Dr. Drew has, was it a big deal to you? He says, well, no, it was more shocking and surprise. And there was an opportunity, and they seem to have gotten off the rails a little bit from that track that I would hope they'd go on. So I don't know. Now maybe Dr. Drew was thinking strategically, like I'll bring it back eventually there. Let's see what happens.
I will do things like hurt people or whatever like that.
Okay, so stop. So that maybe is not okay, right?
I agree. I totally agree.
You ever heard the phrase? I don't know.
Okay, he's talking about my boyfriend.
Can I interject?
Listen, hold on. That's a different issue. But hurt people, right?
Of course,
when you're hurt, that
I
it's not of course. You can deal with it.
So it's great. So he's going off the premise that I've been saying, which hurt people hurt people. People who are hurt will hurt others. He's applying that mainly to her, which is probably accurate, but not to Ethan. But maybe he'll bring it back to him. Let's see.
I have a really, I can't control myself.
Good.
It's almost like I black out, and like so when I get mad or upset or I felt in that position, all of a sudden I started feeling like, wow, I'm being like looked at as the villain, like I did something wrong.
Okay, so there's a lot here, right?
Yeah,
and Ethan, she's doing something active about it. She's actually getting treatment.
Yeah, no,
for
that
it.
Makes me happy to hear.
So good. So I think we can move past that a little bit because that shouldn't happen as much, right?
And I do have a lot of.
I want to commend Trisha, one, for being in therapy. It sounds like she's been to a number of different forms of therapy, including DBT and individual therapy, and for talking about it, which helps to destigmatize getting therapy. a lot of you have watched my channel and have emailed me saying that I helped to give you one more reason to seek out therapy, and that you found a therapist and you like that person and your life is on the improvement track. And it is music to my ears. It's just one of the best things anyone could ever tell me. So thank you to those people who have reached out to me. So I commend Trisha for doing her part too. Obviously, she has a much bigger audience than I do. And her modeling that is just fantastic.
That's something completely different than me having an altercation with
Who's
him.
my brother-in-law? My wife's brother, by the way, someone I care about.
So he's saying, like, I made a video being like, you know, he flirted with fans, whatever, but that's a completely different thing that I already made public, as opposed to an altercation. Like, that's a completely different thing that nobody wanted out there, and you put out there, and then it went to the shitstorm thing of Trisha's an abuser and all this stuff, which was not something that was out.
So they're back to talking about how the other person has transgressed upon the other person. Ethan is saying, you did this, which was a transgression on me and my wife and my wife's brother. And she is saying, well, you have transgressed upon me because of this and this and this. What we want to get to is, okay, because of those transgressions that you perceive, how did you feel about that? What was the primary feeling, the initial feeling? Probably hurt. It probably hurt your feelings. It might have also made you afraid of, well, wait, if they're going to do that to me, are they going to do more things to me? That's a fear-based reaction, right? Then if you can, and then I got angry, and then I got hostile. If we can stick with the hurt and the fear and validate that and help each individual validate themselves for that, get the other person to validate that, then we're in a good space. Now we're in a place of compassionate understanding. And the next time you think about doing something, you'll be like, oh, the last time I did this, the other person said it hurt them. And I don't want to hurt them, so I'm not going to do it. But if all you do is bicker, then the next time you're thinking about doing something, you're just like, well, you know, I'm in the right. Because if you bicker and that's all you do, people tend to walk away from those conversations both thinking that they won, both thinking that they were right, that they're righteous, and the other person is an idiot. So then when you think about doing the same behavior and transgressing upon the other person, you're like, well, who cares? I'm right. They're wrong. That's not a place of rebuilding and of function in a relationship. A place of rebuilding and function is knowing, oh, I hurt that person. Now, I don't agree with the fact that they were hurt, but that's how they felt. And I don't want to hurt that person, so I'm not going to do that. I don't want to hurt the other person. Now, some of y'all might go, well, these people, they don't care about other human beings. They've shown time and time again that they don't care. I don't know that. I believe in human beings. I believe in the two. I've seen enough in this video to believe that they're very much normal humans and that they're capable of hurt, they're capable of fear, and they're capable of defensiveness in response to that. So let's continue watching.
Like,
Hughes, these states.
Yeah, like, it's like a blackout where I'm like, not that person.
Yes.
And like, that was the first time that happened. So now that that's out there on the internet, like, everyone thinks that's just me, that I just like abuse people. And it's like, it's never been that far.
Right. So let's be clear. It's very much the same thing, those blackouts.
Now, I think what's happening right here is Dr. Drew is trying to help by educating her. I mean, it's fine. Maybe it'll work. But I would have hoped that he would have just stopped and said, I see that you're in pain, and I get that. Tell me more about the pain that you're in. Tell me more. I might even go to Ethan. I say, what feeling do you think she's feeling right now? It's the beauty of relational therapies. You go to him and you say, what is she feeling right now? And this is a Satyrian. Virginia Satir is one of my role models as a family therapist. She's a very famous family therapist, and she was famous for when stuff like this happened, she would turn to someone else and be like, what's happening for the other person? And she would really try to facilitate closeness and compassion and understanding right there, not necessarily between therapist and client, but between family members. And she was very good at it. She was a very tall, white woman from Minnesota, Midwest somewhere, and very imposing figure. And she would actually stand up and go over to people, and she'd put her hand on, she might put her hand on Ethan's shoulder and say, like, what are you feeling right now? And might put hands on both their shoulders and say, you know, what's going on for the two of you right now? She just had a very grandma vibe to her, and I find it just to be some of the most intuitive, healing, therapeutic things you could ever do. Now, I don't do that. I don't stand up and put hands on clients, but the emotional part of it is something that I absolutely do. And it really exhibits the power that therapy can provide. That educating clients is something that we can do, but you can get that from the internet. What you can't get from really anywhere else, you can't get it from the internet, you can't get it from friends, you can't get it from a medical provider, you can't get it from a book, is the emotional power that you can wield as a therapist for good. So let's see what happens here.
Or whiteout or red outs that people get when they hurt themselves and other people.
Yeah.
And it needs to be treated, and you're treating it. I mean, that's the thing. Now it's also a sign of like really heavy duty childhood trauma. So you're getting that treated too?
Not so much yet. I mean, because I had my blackout moments where I woke up and I was like, I didn't.
So, okay, I mean, it's not a terrible direction to go in. I just don't think it is reflective of what's happening right now. Essentially, what he's doing right now is saying, let's talk about your treatment, like the way a doctor would, of just like, so are you taking your pills? Are you getting good exercise? This kind of stuff, which, is sound. It's a good conversation to have, but not in the midst of her in utter pain, when you have a wonderful opportunity to help the two of them bond around that, to help engineer compassion. I'm guessing Ethan actually has compassion for her right now. It's hard not to. Someone's crying, she's in pain. Ethan cares, he has a heart, I'm guessing. And if you can engage that, how wonderful of an opportunity would that be? Maybe he'll get there. Let's watch.
And so that's
I don't want to do that. I don't want to hurt anyone, even in my relationship now. I am trying to like sabotage it to not make it last, because I don't want to be harmful to anybody, and I'm dangerous to myself, I'm dangerous to other people, and it's bad.
Okay, so stop. And so Ethan, can you see how when you say something like this is a weaponized, you're attacking me, that's tough territory for her right now?
Okay, good. It's not my style, but not entirely my style. It's partially my style in terms of, as I said, engaging Ethan in the conversation. But what he's saying is essentially, hey, Ethan, do you understand the impact you have when you say certain things to her? That's 75% my style. And when I say my style, I want to be clear. I'm not saying that if you're not my style, you're wrong. That's not what I'm saying. There are many different styles of providing therapy. And so there are some things that I'll say, that's wrong. And you've heard me say that even in this video. Not wrong, but just like, not likely to work. And then there are other things where I'm like, not really my style. Now, maybe in the back of my mind, I'm thinking my style is better. I have to admit that. But I know better than to think that. I know that there are many different styles. And as an educator and supervisor, I wrestle with this all the time. And I occasionally, if you talk to my students and my supervisees, I'm sure they would say, yeah, sometimes Kirk will impose his style on us, even though we're doing something equally as helpful, but it's just not the way he would do it, and so he doesn't like it because of that. I'm sure they would say that, but I try not to be that way. So that's why I try to remind myself, okay, this is a style thing, Kirk. Because honestly, when I watch other people providing therapy and it's not my style, even though it might be great therapy, it'll still rub me wrong, partially because I want to get in there. Like, this is my job. This is my passion. This is why I'm on this planet, is to help people like this. And when I see other people doing it not the way I would want to do it, I'm like, get out of the way. Let me at it. I want to help. And so that's just a, reaction that I have, which can compel me to think that they're wrong, but I know better than to think that. But anyway, let's continue watching. So to reiterate, I like the direction Dr. Drew is going in. She is crying. He turns to Ethan and says, so do you understand that when you say that she's crazy, that it would trigger this in her? So let's see what he says.
You got it?
Yeah, no,
you understand? Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
So here's
let him talk. Now, maybe Dr. Drew has something else, but, ask you, do you understand that? And Ethan's like, yeah, it's a great opportunity to get Ethan talking more about his compassion and his understanding. It's a wonderful, wonderful question that he asked, but then he just cuts him off, Dr. Drew. But I don't know, maybe there's something good happening. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle, in which I react to Trisha and Ethan and Dr. Drew on YouTube. Let me know what you think in the comments, and everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.